All right, so welcome to our regular council meeting of March 20th, 2023. And first of all, I'd like a motion to exit executive session. All right.
Second.
Okay. And I guess also enter into regular session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Yeah, we're gonna move into announcements. So I'll start out with a few. Hey, we had a great celebration of the Transgender Day of Visibility at the Coretta Scott King Center. That was on Saturday. Our resolution was well received. It was really amazing. Also, thanks to Lacey and Community Access for filming and that. That event will be on our YouTube page. Yeah, it was very, very meaningful. We also found out that we have been awarded an Ohio Scenic Award. Every year, 5 municipalities are awarded this. And I wanted to mention anyone that wants to go up on April 7th at 2:00 with Don Hollister and I. We're going to go accept that award and should be fun. It's going to be in Columbus. I also wanted to mention that, it's the International Day of Happiness. So let's see if we can stay happy throughout this meeting. Yeah, we'll see how that works.
Happy wears off the
Yes. Also want to let folks know, Josue and I were up until midnight last night submitting a couple earmark requests with Sherrod Brown's office. One to expand our municipal broadband, the other to support affordable housing. So yes, so hopefully I'll stay awake throughout the meeting. I encourage people to watch the town hall that happened the week before last on single-use plastics. A lot of good takeaways. Amy, something that's come up that I guess maybe we need to talk about more is the implications of House Bill 140. I've gotten some outreach from the school board about they've gotten some very, I guess, conservative advice about how they communicate. And so maybe we need to have a primer on that. I also noticed it is Ed Dressler's birthday today. And of course he passed, but, I think we all know he was the mastermind behind the nation's largest paved trail network. And, we have a path named after him. And then, yeah, I guess I also, I noticed Kay Reimer's letter in the paper, and I just wanted to mention that one of the things I appreciated is that she recognized that it would be great to figure out a way for our retirees to also contribute to our local services. So I'd certainly support that sentiment. And then I think I wanted to turn it over to Carmen to recognize someone that also passed that was really important to the village.
Yeah. So Jackie Davenport passed. It's almost been 2 weeks ago. Just a little bit of background about the kind of person that Jackie was. She had an open door policy for anybody, anytime, including hysterical teenagers. Always something to eat, always level-headed, always fiercely intelligent, sense of humor, the kind of person that didn't laugh at their own jokes, but everybody else in the room is laughing, and you maybe you get a little smile or a nod when everyone finally gets it. There's so much to say when we lose people like that who are a friend immediately. She didn't know a stranger. One of the things that's really impressive about her for me is that she was the first woman that I saw in like any capacity doing like a man's job. She was employed by the village public works. So she was in the wastewater treatment facility from July 22nd, 1974 to May 31st, 2007, 33 years. And she was very influential on a lot of us, just seeing a woman in that kind of position. So I don't know. She was a goodie. Thanks.
Thanks, Carmen. Yeah. Yeah.
Great softball player.
Volleyball.
And yeah, I heard she was a force of nature. And yeah, thanks for sharing that. Do we have any other announcements? Okay, if not, we're going to move into the consent agenda. We've got 3 items. First of all, are the minutes from our last meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from March 6th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next are the minutes from our March 17th public hearing. Motion to approve.
Move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Sounds like everybody. And lastly is we always approve our monthly credit card statement. Motion to approve that.
I move.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So then we're going to move into a review of the agenda. So anything we need to add, modify, or remove? Gavin?
This might be in that like 3-minute category, but just committee check-ins, or maybe it's in the commissions. I don't know. Anyway, just
Yeah,
the housing and the stuff.
since this is our second meeting, that will happen.
Cool.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Judy, do we have to pull off any of these letters?
Pull them off.
I mean, to like approve them or whatever?
Oh,
We've got,
thank you. Yes, the draft letters, the 2 draft letters. One is to Senate representatives regarding rail safety. The other one to Emmett Bose. Both of those letters are from council. They were given to you as draft form. So if you approve them to proceed, then they can get signed by council as a body.
so you think we should put those in new business or?
I think you could just do it quickly right here if you've had a chance to read them.
Okay. All right, so why don't we then move to petitions and communications, and when we hit those letters, we can make sure everybody's good with signing off on them.
All right.
Okay, Kevin?
Okay. So the clerk has received and will file a letter from Emily Seibel regarding the Home Inc. request for funding. Then there were letters in support of the senior apartments being proposed by Home Inc. from Carmen Milano, Antonia Dosik, Ilse Tebbetts, Lynn Kramer, Patti Dallas, and Matt Raska, and a letter from Steve Conn in opposition to funding for those same apartments. The mayor's court, there are 2 mayor's clerk reports from mayor's court. And so there's 2 of those. And then we have also received a flyer from Home Inc., some information regarding the Home Inc. home repair grant. And the last 2 things we have remaining are the letters we just spoke of.
So the first letter is related to, and I guess we're taking one of these and passing them on, is related to supporting the federal legislation around rail safety. Everyone feel comfortable with moving that letter forward? Okay. Anyone opposed to that?
I'm okay with the letter. This was not the letter.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
Okay.
That's something else.
Okay.
And then the second letter is a request from Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, also related to rail safety, and they've asked for the region to support that activity. So everyone on council okay with that letter as well?
I support that.
Great. Okay, so we're going to move into legislation, and at the top, we've got 2 second readings, so I'm going to ask for a motion to not read these 2 ordinances in full.
I move that we be allowed to read these ordinances by title only.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Julie, let's go ahead and do a roll call on that.
Sure. Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Housh.
Yes.
Thank you.
And of course, they are in full in the packet, so people can read all the gory details. So Judy, let's go ahead and read in ordinance 2023-10 by title only.
All right, this is repealing and replacing section 881.06, credit for tax paid to other municipalities of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, to change the amount of credit granted by the Village of Yellow Springs for income tax paid to other municipalities.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
Second.
Okay. All right, Josue, we've talked about this for a while, but why don't you give us a brief overview?
Sure, and let me know. I'll do briefly, and if you need me to go in greater detail as I did last council meeting, please let me know. In essence, council is considering adjusting the credit factor, which is the amount of credit that we offer residents for taxes paid to other municipalities. This is specifically related to income tax. So we currently have a 1.5 income tax rate for the village. So anyone who works in the village pays that 1.5%. Residents who live but work elsewhere, if they have an income tax in that municipality, they pay whatever rate they pay there, and the village offers 100% credit for up to the 1.5% fund activities.
Okay. And, obviously we had a lot of documentation in the last packet highlighting that many surrounding municipalities and across the state are adjusting their reciprocal tax. So are there any questions or comments from council members?
Yeah, can we have some specific projects that this might help fund?
Certainly, because it's a general fund revenue, it could go towards anything that the general fund covers. So that's general services, planning and zoning. Some of the programs that are heavily funded by the general fund, in addition to public safety, are streets and parks, or pool. As you know, or pool, the revenue from pool passes doesn't pay for the pool services, so it's subsidized by the general fund, and a variety of other things in the general fund, council budget, council commissions.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing because it is a second reading. And do we have any comments from citizens? Yes. And then just state your name and
Of course. Thank you for walking through that, Jose. Jill Polly, North Winter Street resident. I am here to speak in opposition of this proposal. A bit about my background. So I am starting a new job on Wednesday in Columbus. The reason I'm starting this new job is because I was laid off from my position around the holidays, and for months and months have been pounding the pavement relentlessly, getting rejection after rejection, and am happy in honor of International Happiness Day. Yay, I finally locked down a job. However, albeit it's in Columbus. The reason I'm in opposition to this is because I think it's unfair. It would be one thing if there was a surplus of positions that were comparable to the one that I was laid off from, or the one that I was able to nail down. It would be one thing if I was opting out of accepting one of those jobs here in the village in favor of taking one of these in Columbus. But I can assure you that that is not the case. There's unfortunately an absence of these types of positions here in the village. I'm not saying that's any fault of the village. I'm just saying there's an absence of them. It would be one thing if I was saying, no, thank you to this job in the village. I'm still going to go work in Columbus, but that just isn't the case. And I think it's unfair for me or people like myself to be penalized is what it feels like for the absence of those types of positions and choosing from the opportunities that I did have available to me, which is in Columbus. Do I want to drive an hour to my job each way? No, I don't. But that's, again, what was available to me. And so I'm taking it. What I do want to do is take that money that I earn in Columbus and bring it back here to spend in the village, which will absolutely be the case. So that's the point that I want to make, is that I think that it's unfair because it's not as though I said no to positions here in the village. I was not able to secure one here in the village. However, I was able to in Columbus. And that is all that I wanted to say for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jill. Any other comments? Okay, anything else that council members would like to say? Marianne?
Yeah, this is not an easy decision, and we wouldn't be doing it and hadn't done it when the village actually had enough money. But we have been overspending our budget for the last 3 years or so. And it's hard to be fair for everyone. For example, as I have noted, and I guess as you noted in the paper, there are retired people who live here who are not salaried or making wages, and therefore they're not paying that kind of income tax, yet they may have more money than other people. And at the same time, anyone who lives here uses our services. They use our roads, they use our police, hopefully they use our parks. And so we should have some compensation from people. So that's why I acknowledge that this is difficult. It's a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everyone. Well, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people.
Any other council members? Did you want to say something, Kevin? Okay. Yeah, I'll just reiterate. I think, we had a lot of discussion at the last council meeting. I'll say, first of all, again, we wouldn't be doing this unless, the state had forced us to, by taking away the local government tax, by taking away the state tax, by not investing in, the rainy day fund that is now maxed out. We do not get sales tax, so despite having a vibrant, business community, that all goes to the county, and they give us, I think every 3 years, 50,000 or something for a small project. And I do want to just clarify when Marianne mentioned that we've overspent on our budget, it's been intentional because we have infrastructure to fix: sidewalks, sewer, water, etc. And it's become very clear that we got to stop the gap on our budget deficit. So not an easy decision. Kevin pointed out at the last meeting, I have been prevented this from coming to council meetings for 2 years, but I wasn't willing to do that anymore because I see the writing on the wall. So I think it's just important to understand where we're at, and this is why it would be great to have a better state government. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Oh, Gavin, go ahead.
Oh, just to say, I made all the comments I felt like I needed to make at the last meeting. So I have thoughts about it, but I don't have anything new.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing, and Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
All right. McQueen,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
No.
Pausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we've got the second reading of Ordinance 2023-11, and Judy will do that by title only as well.
All right, this is adding chapter 454 to the Codified Ordinances of Yellow Springs for the regulation of EV charging stations.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Goes away.
All right, thank you. This is a follow-up from last council meeting. As you know, we've been supporting EV charging stations for a long time now. Last year, we had the unfortunate event where 2 of them just broke. And as we were looking to replace them and create a model that would allow us to invest in EV charging infrastructure throughout the village, we recognize the need to have codified ordinances in place that will regulate the installation, maintenance, operations, and charging of EV charging stations throughout the village. So the ordinance before you sets that codification of those regulations. And we've also are including a proposal for what the charging rates should be. And we hope that this creates the foundation, or as I said in my memo, pave the way for EV charging infrastructure throughout the village.
All right. I also want to thank Amy Kemper for kind of thinking about what's a proper way to look at charging with EV, because Teslas are very different from a lot of your other electric charging vehicles. And we're also trying to, balance the whole aspect of somebody just parking their car there all day and, not allowing that charging station for, what's going to become more and more an important thing in the village. I will say as a side note, I was just at the Last Queen yesterday, and I love seeing that they've got an EV charger in their parking lot. And, we're committed to facilitating this, with other businesses and whatnot. So it is the future. Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Any questions or comments from council members? And Gavin.
Excuse me. I just wanted to check to make sure that in the regulations, control and maintenance, that we're factoring in essentially staff time and all of our costs, that this is not that we're covering our costs with this.
Amy's coming up, and we are trying to cover our overall cost. This is not a money maker for us.
No, it's break even for us.
Yeah.
And there isn't a lot of staff time other than Johnny's time to implement and upgrade the software and coordinate with the company. The revenue that'll comes in through an app, and it just gets deposited quarterly to us with a 5% withhold. So it's not like people are coming in to give us their credit card. It's all app driven. So it should be very minimal to the village.
What's the basis of the decision to not have it be a moneymaker? I guess I assumed that we would be making a little bit of money.
We'll cover our costs. The theory is the reason you get an electric car, not only for the environment, is it's cheaper to run and better, right? So you can't make a charge much more than gas, or else it just disenfranchises people from doing the environmental thing, right? So really what you're trying to do is keep it, and we've looked at a lot of other policies at other municipalities also, just so you know, and it covers our costs, it covers our network charges, it gives us enough money that we can keep upgrading, and keeping the software current is the big deal right now, because the software outpaces the changes in the software, and the companies outpace anything else. So I think that environmentally, we want to keep it affordable so that people will do EV cars in the village. I mean, isn't that what we're about? Sustainability and things like that. For me, I have an electric car. It's going to cost me about $3.50 to charge a day. And that's a gallon of gas for me. So it's not really economical for me to plug in and pay, but I would do it because I don't like to use gas. So.
I had assumed that we would be generating some income from it.
Well, this is it's taking our program from losing money or
Stepping up
for the charges to now recovering our costs. So I think that's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So the projection's based on 17% occupancy. And I think that's low, but we just don't have any history because of COVID and all those fun things and the booming market for EV chargers. I think we're going to see a lot more like 25 to 50% coverage. And if we incentivize people to turn over the charging stations so that other people can use it, I think it'll be an interesting year to see how it really pans out for us.
And that's a great point. As we see the adoption of it, the more people we have, there will be room to make money if it does good.
And I will of course I support electric vehicles. And at the same time, those people who are able to afford electric vehicles also are higher income for the most part. So it's not like, as far as I know, you have a lot of poor people having full electric vehicle. So I'll support it, but I would like to keep an eye on it because I think it's something we should be able to make a little bit of money.
Mhm. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Amy. Any other questions or comments from council? Comments from citizens? Okay, then we're gonna close the public hearing, and Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, DeBoer Leonard,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is the emergency reading of ordinance 2023-12, and we'll do that by title only.
This is approving the plan of operation and governance for the Sustainable Ohio Public Energy Council, SOPEC, natural gas aggregation program for the purpose of jointly establishing and implementing a natural gas aggregation program and declaring an emergency.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so it's probably good to just mention when we do emergency readings, no fire alarms are going off or anything. We have actually had two special meetings to move this forward because ultimately the goal of this legislation is to allow our citizens to access cheaper prices for natural gas. And so there are a lot of opportunities in the market right now to do that. We've had meetings with 3 gas aggregators. The one that's being recommended, SOPEC, is we got Luke here today. But ultimately, this is a good thing. We want to, again, like make sure that people can access lower prices for that particular utility. So, Josue?
I think you covered it a lot. We had 2 public hearings, one that went in great detail about how the program operates. In short, what I'll highlight that some of which Brian has already covered, we're looking to create savings for residents by leveraging our collective purchasing power. So we hope to bring what we consider to be the cheapest gas option for residents under a 2-year contract. We'll go out to the market after, if council approve joining SOPEC and adopting the operations plan, we'll go out to market and get bids from suppliers. Once we've agreed to a contract with council, SOPEC and the village administration will coordinate the communication strategy to get all of our residents on board. We'll send out the letters. There are some residents that can be automatically enrolled, and those are customers that currently are not in a level payment plan or already under contract with another supplier. So those folks would automatically roll in. Now, our customers or residents can opt out at any time. At any time, with no hidden charges. There's no fine print in our arrangement. The rate that we say they're paying, that's their supplier rate. Should they find something cheaper in the open market or under another contract, they can opt out at any time. I hope that won't happen very often because we're entering the market at a very good time, and we'll hope to be able to secure the cheapest gas price we can over the next 2 years, or a term on the next 2 years. Luke, Executive Director of SOPEC, is here tonight, and he's available for any questions or any additional information.
Okay. Thanks, Josue. So I'm going to open the public hearing since it is an emergency reading, and council questions or comments.
Oh, I just wanted to state, so it's my understanding that there's no cost, of course, on our end to opt in or out. But if you're with someone else, there might be a fee associated with terminating that agreement. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
You need to make sure if you try to leave your existing contract, make sure there are no termination fees or that it makes sense for you to do so. So
Okay.
do your research if you have an existing contract. In some cases, it may make sense. Other cases may not, but
Okay.
absolutely, that's correct.
Thanks.
And yeah, so related to that, if you have an existing contract, you're not opted in, right? I mean, you're under that contract. So, so you make that decision. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, questions or comments from citizens? Mark.
So first of all, I want to say it's a great program and I appreciated the process the council went through in evaluating different suppliers. I did provide information on one of those suppliers. Very happy with the decision. Personal. So my contract is up in April. When is this being implemented?
Well, since it's an emergency reading, it means within 30 days, right?
It means that it's in effect immediately.
Oh, immediately.
Yes.
Look at that. Even better. Okay.
We will still need to go to market and
Yeah.
get a secure a contract and
Sure.
do administrative items, but I don't know, with 60 days probably be.
Yeah, functionally to get all the filings done, there's another piece of legislation to be companion to this, but functionally for the notice that has to go to citizens, the Public Utilities Commission has a review period of that. You're looking at about 2 months. Once we lock in price, that residents will see that active on their bills. And then whatever the next meter read cycle is, plays into that as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that for a moment? Look, you had mentioned something in one of the public hearings that some of those processes could happen at the same time. So that I had understood that you would be able to start negotiating rates as soon as we had passed either the first or the second piece of legislation. And
We can start the process now. We just won't be able to formalize until the second piece. There's a second piece of formally joining SOPEC beyond the plan of governance, which you have to do. But yes, it'll be very short order.
okay.
But yeah, this, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And so, I think one of the things I heard there is we'll be putting the notice out in the paper and keeping people updated also on our social media. I see Philip is in the mix, so keep everybody informed. All right. So Judy, if we can call the roll then.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, did I close the public meeting? Let me just double check I did that. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So we got the first reading of ordinance 2023-13. Judy, we can do that by title only.
Right, this is repealing and replacing section 1064.02 rates, admissions, and season hours of chapter 1064 municipal swimming pool of part 10 streets, utilities, and public services of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Josue.
All right, thank you. It's been a few years since we've asked for a rate adjustment for the pools, given the hyperinflation that we experienced over the years with our pool cost, our labor cost. Now we're competing for a very constrained market for the employees that we typically hired, which tend to be on the younger side, and it's part of our workforce development program. And if you haven't already seen the training program and the coaching that our park supervisor Samantha Stewart goes through with our pool employees, I encourage you to stop by anytime during the summer or any training session, and you can see how involved the program is. Anyway, where our pool of candidates is getting smaller and smaller, and we're having to compete with other jobs that pay significantly better than our pool jobs. So part of the increase in cost is the labor cost of the pool in addition to materials. So we find ourselves having to raise the rates. We're proposing a 15% rate increase across the board. That's the changes are included in your packet with the ordinance. Well, the increases we're seeing on discounted rates, we're seeing a $5 increase to pool passes for children of age 4 and under the age of 4 and 4 to 17 and seniors 62 years and older. Are those increases carried throughout all the different categories? So in adult age 18 to 61, we'll see an increase of $7 from $49 to $56. Pass of one adult plus a minor will go from $56.50 to $65. A household will go from $65 to $75, and each additional member $17, which is a $2 increase. And childcare provider passes are going from $15 to $17. And I could go and describe the other rates if you need me to, or can answer questions you may have.
Kevin?
So have we ever asked the county to pitch in? I mean, is it true that we're the only pool left in the county?
We are the only public pool in Greene County. Yes, we've asked Miami Township to pitch in for township residents and they've considered the request. We were never able to finalize a dollar amount. The Community Foundation has been supportive of that effort as they are of other Swim for All efforts. We continue to fund those programs. We do not turn away any family or child that needs access to the pool. In the past, council offset provided an additional contribution where we ran out of Swim for All funds in the general fund. But in short, county has not contributed to the pool operations, and it's something that we will look towards asking from the county.
And then the other question I had is just, so these rates, are they reflected in the budget? Like when we were doing the budget, were you expecting this or?
No. So from because the way the pool budget is nestled into our parks and recreation budget, we had put in projections overall for the general fund. The contributions or the revenues going into the pool is from two sources: admission, which is sales, concessions, and the transfer from the general fund. So these numbers, we did not estimate a 15% increase. So in short, the budget as it is now, it's already approved, and we did not estimate any potential revenue increase from this 15%.
But you're saying that functionally, you're assuming that it's going to cost more to run the pool than what's in the budget right now.
Correct.
And so this just makes up the difference. It's not like we already had enough to cover what it's going to cost because of increased costs. We're going to, raise the hourly rate for, lifeguards and that kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Did anyone come tonight to talk about this? All right, we will have a second hearing. Okay, so I think we'll move on to
Before we move on, is there any additional information I can provide to council for next meeting? Is there anything you would like to see?
One of the things that seeing if there's any funding available through the county to request, for assistance
Mhm.
In
the full
township.
cost for the
In
township,
township.
a dollar amount.
I will engage the township. I am in conversations with the senior center on the community development grant that the county has open. This is for community programming. The challenges we've had with that program is that we do not meet the economic bracket for those funds, since they are community development block grant funding. But that's the only program they have available at the county level. There's another one that we can apply to, but that's for municipal services, and particularly infrastructure improvements. But I will check to see if there's any other funding sources through the county.
Anything else? All right. Then we're going to move into ordinance 2023-14. Judy, we can read that in by title only as well.
Right, this is repealing and replacing chapter 860, solicitors and itinerant vendors.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this is legislation that we had been talking about last year. It timed out, and it also gave us a chance to kind of look back at some of the comments that were made around regular vendors not needing to have to renew their permits, periodically. And so there are a variety of different structures that are talked about, and I'll let Josue take it from there.
Oh, Brian, thank you. I think you covered most of it. There have been a number of vendors that we wanted to be able to track for tax reporting purposes. One of the issues we wanted to see 2 years ago were certain vendors and knowing if they were paying taxes. Well, Rita wouldn't give us any information, couldn't do any background research on them because they were not registered vendors. So in order for Rita to report back to us any tax filings on a potential vendor, we have to have some registration process. So it's been an ongoing conversation over years. Last year, we were also looking at regulating more than just vendors. We've had several instances of contractors taking advantage of our citizens and engaging in business practices that are at a disadvantage to our residents. And we want to be able to have a way of tracking those contractors and being able to explain the rules and regulations. This doesn't solve that challenge. We tried combining these two issues, but we think it's better to keep those issues separate. So this piece of legislation only looks at iterant vendors. Now, this ordinance that you are hearing tonight also gives us the ability to do enforcement with vendors that do not come through the chamber as part of their registration process for street fair. We estimate that there are around 50 vendors at street fair that they don't come through the chamber. They set up on private property and negotiate the deals that they negotiate with private property vendors. This piece of legislation would also give us the enforcement tool to find out, require those vendors to register and know what business they're doing. Did I miss anything on that, Amy? Okay.
And then I'll just reiterate that Gavin and I, as part of the finance committee, met with Rita to talk about, what Josue referenced, that when vendors are registered, as is common practice in many communities, that then gives them the opportunity to send them information about what their obligations are for, whether it's net profit tax or other taxes, and not something that we're able to do if they're not registered. Okay, so Marianne.
So I have no problem with having people register, but I have a problem with this, the same problem that I had last time, that this is for no longer than 30 days. So that means for people who are doing something, say someone at Nipper's Corner, every month, they're going to have to resubmit. And I think that that is onerous and not realistic.
So if I may answer that, there's two tiers. There's a 30-day license, which is for $35, and a $50 license that cover them the entire year. We did incorporate that feedback from council, and so there's those two tiers.
Oh, okay, I didn't.
So a vendor at Nippers for $50 could set up for an entire year.
Okay. Any other?
Right.
Yep. Anything else?
So what I'm
Council.
thinking about is the private, okay, so I guess the first thing is the reason Rita couldn't provide any information on some of these vendors is because they are not businesses registered with the state?
They were not registered with us, so we didn't have any authority to ask whether they were paying taxes.
Okay, so I guess my next question from that is, if someone is set up on private property selling, I don't know, dream catchers or tie-dye t-shirts or any of the other stuff that people sell around here, I guess my question is, okay, so we can have them register $35 or $50 for the year, but how would we go about enforcing tax payment? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it can be very difficult, especially if it's a cash business. How do you know what we're just selling? So there's a bit of an honor system there that the vendor is reporting their net profits and any wages that they're paying to an employee.
So reporting their net profits to
Rita.
the village to Rita.
To Rita, yes.
Right.
Yeah, Rita would assist in creating taxpayer accounts through the Rita system. So the village outsources that work to Rita. There's a form that the vendor would fill out. They get a welcome message and are provided instructions how to create a taxpayer account on the Rita system. So Rita handles that for us.
Okay, and then thanks for clearing that up for me. The other thing that I'm thinking about is enforcing this on private property owners who have someone come like during street fair to sell candy bars or whatever, like how, like even if it's for, how do we do that? Yes.
Yeah, sorry, there's what I feel, I hope and I believe that the easy way that would be resolved is that any property owner who is actively recruiting vendors for such a large event like street fair, they would inform the vendors that they're expecting that the village has this requirement and they're expected to comply, and we'll have the either that property owner organize the registration and payments to the village on behalf of the vendors, or provide the resources to those vendors so that they can register and provide the permit fee to the village. With the chamber, what we have discussed is that the chamber will remit a vendor fee on behalf of the chamber, and that will resolve the vendor fee issue for the chamber.
Okay, so there really is, we're really depending on people who own property, who have someone come and set up. We're depending on them coming to the village to make sure that they're the person that is going to sell. I mean, there's yard sales, there's people selling t-shirts, there's.
Yes, for those large events, I hope that the strong relationship that we have with the property owners and the event organizers will facilitate that information and the compliance for vendors not part of that process. Currently, as it is, we have several vendors that are good at coming and checking in the dispatch and paying for their iterant vendor fee. With the others that have not been practicing that, we will launch an education campaign to hand out cards or some informational material to inform them of the requirement. And we will have the ability of knowing who's registered for a permit and who isn't, and we can ask for compliance. And that typically currently is being done by the chief of police, who issues the iterant vendor permits.
Okay, so I guess it clears it up a little bit, but I guess my question is, then I'll just say it like this. There's really, it's a statement, there's really no way that we can ensure that property owners, private property owners who have someone come and set up on their property to sell. I've seen homemade cookies and kids having bake sales, lemonade. I mean, these are not like hugely profitable. It's not hugely profitable enterprise.
And they're not going to owe any tax either.
Right.
So
we just expect them to register and then pay this $35 fee
I think
or a $50 fee. Is that what it is?
I think the main thing is the honor system piece, and the folks that recognize, like when you set up your French fry station at Nippers and you're there for 6 months. What was appealing to me when we talked to Rita was that maybe some people don't know that they have responsibilities to pay taxes, and this gives them that opportunity. I mean, I guess the other thing I'll say is the village has not been, we don't have a history of going after folks. We trust that they are meeting their tax obligations.
Okay.
But if we have that person registered, technically we could check on the French fry guy and see if he's paying taxes. So
more so than on the kids selling cookies.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's nothing to a child under the age of 17.
Correct. Right. Correct. So
People under the age of 17.
Okay.
yes, I'm sorry, I should have said it. If there's a kid with a lemonade or selling cookies, we're not going after that kid. Yeah.
What about a granny? Never mind. Okay. That's good. Never mind. No grannies.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Okay, Mark.
Long night. So this has some interesting, first of all, thank you for this legislation. As a brick and mortar owner, and having been downtown, I appreciate it. It's necessary. It's needed, because there are folks here that are in the village vending that have no concept of the overhead that the rest of us are paying. That said, this ordinance is really a top side view. It is really doesn't get enough into the weeds. Examples of that are, as for example, are there when you register for a registration, will there be a registration number? The reason that I asked that, and I'm sure Jocelyn might talk about a little bit later, but how are we going to know for street fair if we have a regular vendor that's been in the village all year, has paid us $50? How do we know that we're not supposed to collect that money to pass on to the village? Number two, is there any there's no spelling out of any of the limitations of the vendor permit. I'll be a perfect example. Josue, you may remember this, and Brian, you may remember this, switching hats to Oddfellows. 4th of July, a couple of years ago, we ended up in a yelling fight over a vendor who had purchased a village vendor permit and basically said, I can vend anywhere in the village I want to because I have this village vendor permit. There's nothing in this legislation that says differently. So what's the difference? Where can the folks set up? What part of the public right of way are they allowed to set up on? The other thing, and then I noticed it's specific to the language, every solicitor of funds, and I know that we separated this from the buskers ordinance, but this applies, just by those words, applies to buskers. Period, unless they're called out as being exempt under this ordinance. There's a lot here that isn't here that needs to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Great feedback. Other comments? Yes.
Alex Price with Mills Park Hotel. First off, I just want to say, I think, like echoing Mark, the concept behind this is great. There are a lot of really good things that can come from this. But also, like Mark said, it's like 80% there. There's some shortfalls that still need to be looked at. And I appreciate the questions because those are very valid. One of the things that I would highly recommend is on the punitive side or the fee side of it for non-compliance is making it equitable to other events that have vendor registrations and such that are requiring people to be here. And very clearly defining if that belongs to the vendor or the private property owner or both. I think that would make a big difference in how this is enacted.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Any other comments? Okay, so I don't think we'll take a vote because I'd like to incorporate that feedback when we bring it back for the second reading. You guys have a direct line to Josue, obviously, and I think our goal is to get this right. So yeah, so thanks for that. We really appreciate that. Okay.
So there are three items. It would be great for us to get some feedback. Our intentions were not to regulate buskers through this ordinance. I think that's clear. So
correct.
We'll review that as an exemption. The Alex brings up where to place the fine on the vendor and or property owners. That right? Okay. And I hear the concerns from on the property delimitations from Mark Heiss. Those are all three things that council will want to see some build out on.
I think that makes sense. Okay. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Amy.
So in terms of the location of where this ordinance is already on the books, right? I want to make sure everybody understands that. We're tweaking it slightly with some of these changes, but it already exists and it doesn't speak to where vendors can or can't set up. So that sounds to me like a much bigger conversation than would be maybe included in the itinerant vendor ordinance and could be done in a different way. That doesn't need to be spelled out in an ordinance. It isn't now. And vendors are currently setting up where they set up, right? I understand there's been issues maybe, and there's probably a way to streamline that, but I don't know that this ordinance is necessarily the place to do that. Also, in terms of the license, who the fine would apply to, or whether the property owner would be held accountable, this ordinance is only for itinerant vendors. It speaks to no one. It speaks not at all to anyone allowing an itinerant vendor on their property. It says that if you're going to be an itinerant vendor in the village, you have to get this license. This is what it costs. You have to display it if we ask you for it. And if you don't do these things, you could be held responsible with a minor misdemeanor.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Amy. And I think, you know, what part of that means is with the 4th of July example that we need to be more careful about, you know, when we issue that. Yes, we learned our lesson. Yeah.
That lesson.
Yep. Did you want to add something else, Mark? Yeah.
I appreciate your statement, Amy, but honestly, knowing how long it's taken to get to this point with an itinerant vendor permitting process. If we don't do this now and define it here now with this piece of legislation, it'll take forever to do it again. Just knowing how long it took this last time to get this far, which, as I said, was a great piece that's been long coming. But I really would like to get, as you said, Brian, let's get this right and get it all included. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. All right, so we are going to move into our resolutions. And first of all, we've got 2023-15. Judy, we can do that by title only.
All right, this is approving electric vehicle charging fee schedule in accordance with chapter 454 of the Codified Ordinances of Village of Yellow Springs.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
All right. Josue, tell us what this is.
Thank you,
about.
Brian.
Yes.
All right, this is a continuation of earlier conversation and past conversations. Brian, you were right on the commentary about Amy Camper that, you know, when you have somebody that knows how to that already uses a system, has an electric car, you can have a shift in the thinking or the approach to an item. This resolution looks to set the rates for EV charging stations at the consumption side. This is based on kilowatt. And the previous thought on this was to look at it based on parking time, how long cars were parked there. And part of the driving force behind that was that, you know, cars sat there for a very long time. And once you look at it from a charging perspective, consumption perspective, then we're able to put the charge on the behavior and the consumption versus just the car sitting there, because not all cars are made the same. We have high-end pricey vehicles that charge at 3-4 times the rate of a lower-end EV vehicle. And this structure of charging by consumption properly places the cost on the user by what they consume. Amy, did I miss anything? All right. Any questions?
Questions? Yes.
So we have a question. Well, it's a geeky question. So let's say, make things simple. You know, I plug in at 3:30 and at 5 o'clock, I'm done. Does right at 5 o'clock the dollar charge for parking start? Or that was not the best example. If I stopped at an odd time, would I still just sit there for nothing for another period and then that kicks in at the next whole hour or half hour?
So if you're complete charged, there's a grace period which the software said could implement to the technology, and then the $1 per hour kicks in.
Okay.
So
do we control that grace period?
yes, we do control that grace period. Amy?
So your app's going to tell you when you're done charging, and they suggested from Blink that we give a half-hour grace period, especially if you're in the village. It's not going to take you that long to get back, and then start charging the $1 penalty after that. So
Sounds perfect.
I
Thank you.
think my car just told me it was.
Oh, get out there and move it.
We haven't enacted this yet. So.
That's right. Yeah. Right after we vote. But any other questions? Questions or comments from citizens? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Then we've got resolution 2023-16. We can do that by title only as well.
This is approving a volunteer policy for Village of Yellow Springs volunteers.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Second.
All right.
This has been team effort. So
Yeah. Carmen, do you want to talk about this first or?
Oh, I mean, the only thing that I have to say is that yay. I mean, it's been to have a policy in place, release a liability waiver form in place, to start formalizing volunteer efforts and really coming into the place where we can give people credit for what they contribute to the village in any capacity. Like we're thinking about boards and commission chairs and people who weed, and it's just it's been a long time coming, and I'm happy that we're here finally.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I want to add that this is part of where I think you make a plan, you work together, and hey, I think we're on schedule, right? We said we were going to do this at the second meeting in March. So yes. Josue, Amy, anything you want to add, or?
I don't think I have anything to cover. The documents and they're pretty robust. There's the waivers, and obviously there'd be some things to visit based on activities. Some of whether the event that requires staff supervision is going to depend by activity. For every activity, we're going to review risk profile and evaluate if additional resources or anything that needs to be considered for that particular event will be needed. But that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Overall, this provides a good structure to move forward with formalizing some already existing volunteer activities and other new activities. Just to be clear, the village has had a long history of volunteerism. So volunteering in the village isn't new. This policy may be new, but the activities are not new to the village. This helps create a framework for us to continue to build on to the engagement of volunteers.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all the work. Mary Ann, did you have?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So right now we have volunteers on village property that Tecumseh Land Trust sponsors, the tree committee, the women's park, at least those are three. So in those cases, do we deem that those organizations are in charge of those volunteers as opposed to the village?
Correct. So let's walk through an example. The tree committee will continue doing the work that they do. One of the things that we're going to ask is for a waiver form to be completed for each volunteer for their term of service. And we would not interfere in their current operations. I think there are going to be other folks that might not need a volunteer for, say, the neighborhood garden folks that are doing their garden. There is an activity there for us to regulate. I think we've blessed the neighborhood gardens. We are not in a coordinated volunteer project there.
But would we ask them for a waiver? For example, the gardeners, it seems like.
Gardeners, I don't see it as a volunteer activity. Amy will. Yeah, I don't see it as a volunteer activity. We're not in a coordinated project, so I don't see the need to request it for those folks. But certainly, the tree committee will be part of that group that they are in a coordinated project, whether that's watering the trees or pruning trees or setting down mulch.
So the other two questions are: who determines whether a staff representative needs to be at an activity? How's that determined? And then in terms of tools, it says that has to be at the discretion of the staff. Let's say it's either the tree committee or Tecumseh Land Trust, and we're using chainsaws. Is that covered because Tecumseh Land Trust is supervising it, or what?
I think we're going to have that conversation with our project. So in the past, let's just take the most recent example of the last year. We hired somebody to do the mowing. TLT and the group volunteer corps tagged the shrubs that were going to get cut. We asked for a few, and then we stepped away and were not involved how they got it done. I think with knowing that chainsaws are being used, we're certainly going to have waivers for all those things. We prefer that if there's a project that we're leading, that we are staffing it based on the risk profile of that volunteer group. The chainsaws we have, if we're providing a chainsaw, there's liability for us. So we have to make sure that they know how to use it and have the proper protective gear. I would rather not have volunteers use tools that could cut a limb. So I think we're gonna need to talk through some of those.
Because we do, I mean, I bring my chainsaw, for example.
Right. So, I mean, that would be, if someone is volunteering with TLT, then obviously TLT probably has that part covered.
Mhm.
So if TLT is doing something on village property and there's a representative from TLT there who has a chainsaw, we can almost ensure that that person has, like,
I understand. Amy, will we have legal obligation to verify that they're properly trained in that tool?
I don't want to think about anybody using a chainsaw on village property.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Gotcha.
So these are all the shades of gray that come with this that we've talked about as we've developed this policy. Depending on the activity, the risk is different. The waiver will seem way too robust for some activities, but it's written in a way to cover something like someone working with a chainsaw, right? And so if we by having this policy in place and this waiver in place, now we can take each example that you've given and figure out what needs. I mean, we've already talked about the tree committee situation and asking them to sign those waivers. The TLT, I'm not as familiar with the facts of that. I'd like to know more about like.
Let's just say that, let's say there's some work that needs to be done on one of the new baby trees and there's somebody needs to bring
Yeah,
a
and
3-pound
small, it's not
chainsaw
like
out.
huge trees that are being felled. It's like the
So,
scrub.
I guess I guess that my question would be, are we going to ask someone from tree committee who's been doing this for, how many ever years, that they need to come here and let somebody know that they're going to be using a chainsaw and they've been doing it for the last 20 years?
So in a perfect world, everyone who's volunteering on our property to our
Yes.
benefit, our being the village,
Yes.
should be signing that waiver.
Right. So they sign the waiver and then we decide that we're not comfortable with them using a chainsaw anymore.
So
And
the tools issue, this hadn't even occurred to me. We hadn't had this conversation at all when we were drafting the policy. That's something we might need to revisit.
Yeah.
Because when I'm looking at that, I'm picturing Johnny or somebody from his team on site at an activity that's been organized by the village and with the, express purpose of getting something done.
Right.
And then whether, they're going to make the determination on site of who's using the tools, everybody will have already signed the waiver. With what you're describing and Mary Ann saying, I bring my own chainsaw, kudos to you. That's a totally different fact pattern and something we should be thinking about, the use of other people's tools under our auspices on our property to our benefit. That's a conversation.
With other organizations. It's always with another
organizations.
organization.
These aren't just like.
No, I understand.
People who are
No,
like,
I understand. This
I'm
is not
coming
just
to cut some stuff down.
Right. Yeah. So then it's possible that TLT will have their own thoughts on that. I'm sure.
Right. And they probably, that not only their own thoughts, but their own liability.
This is what I mean. Like their own legal analysis. When I say thoughts, they'll have their own legal analysis and it's, are they not requesting waivers of volunteers already?
No. But okay, so we can work this out.
Yeah, but
I'm okay with
that's not, is that
We
our
can work it out,
business?
but it'll have to be worked out.
Yeah.
Well, she would know because she's presumably you're volunteering with them, right?
Mhm.
So that's why I was asking her. Yeah.
Well, it's a joint thing, I'm doing it for the glass farm conservation area. And the TLT is organizing it for the village, really.
Right.
So
Okay, we can
then
think about
So,
that.
I mean,
you should sign a waiver.
So,
Yeah.
it's not about the waiver. Yes,
Right.
I think everyone should do that. It's about the chainsaw.
It's
Yeah.
about the chainsaw. Exactly. Because the policy does say that village.
When you say chainsaw, I'm thinking our 16 to 24-inch chainsaw. But you're talking about a 3-inch chainsaw.
3 inch, no, 16
Or-
inch chainsaw. I mean, that's the
Oh, so you.
the saw.
Okay, but 16-inch, that
not-
is
it's not-
a
Safety
sizable.
thing is the
So
same.
we
Like, you're not,
don't need to sit up here. with
your chainsaw is this big or this big.
Well,
The safety thing is the
I'll
same.
bring it next
The
time.
liability, I'd love to see. The liability thing is not because
Right.
we provide the chainsaw. It's different than when someone brings
Well,
their.
and this is also why I shared, what the Ohio Department of Natural Resources put together
Yeah.
to address this. So I'll reshare that in case we need to bring that into the mix. So.
Well, and specifically, we probably need to work through the tools because that's an astute call out in there. That policy does specifically address tools. So we'll need to revisit that.
Mark, sure.
Sorry, I just had PTSD. We're this close to the Buckeye Trail Association to having our volunteer handbook completed. I'd be more than happy to provide that to you. It includes specifically the certification of sawyers and using chainsaws and how it's to be done under whose auspices. And just so you're aware, the United States Forest Service, National Park Service, and ODNR all offer free sawyer certification classes, which I would highly recommend. What you said, Mary Ann, you don't scare me, but what you said scares me. Because I know the situations that we've had to deal with, because we've got sawyers running around the state all the time, tending to trail. And yeah, it may start out like this little thing, but we sent a guy to a hospital maybe 2 months ago. So please consider it and consider me a resource. I'll be more than happy to help with that.
I appreciate the
Thank you.
concern, but I do not want to move into this from a position of like being fearful. Like we have to think about these things, but yeah. All right.
We're getting started. Yeah, Mitzi.
Mitzi Miller. I'm with a group, Yellow Spring Citizen Action Project, that uses volunteers for sidewalks. And my understanding of this is that it's a village activity, right? You're talking about.
We're talking about village
Property, right?
Village property, yes.
Are sidewalks village property?
They are
Yes.
village property.
So you're saying that my volunteers would have to do a waiver?
Yes, what I envision us working on your program is right now it's sort of an ad hoc thing, and sometimes you advertise it and sometimes you don't. I think that we would have a better communication about when things are happening and what's to be done. I'm not so worried about you using mechanical tools because I understand you're not using mechanical tools. You're using things like spades or other fixed objects. You're not using chainsaws, right?
No,
Okay.
no, we're just trimmers or edgers.
Yeah. So we'll now, once council approves this, I would like to have a conversation of what the sidewalk treatment looks like by your group in the coming year. And
What do you mean sidewalk treatment? What we do?
Yeah, what you do, you're trimming or cutting back grass, what the work that you're doing. So your intervention strategies.
Well,
whatever you
my
wanna call it.
conversation with the solicitor and the village was that that I made sure that I expressed to property owners that this wasn't a village related activity,
Mhm.
which I said I would do.
Yeah.
And now it seems to me that you're trying to control this group of volunteers that have made great accomplishments in the village.
Mhm.
And I don't see us frequently doing this anymore because of an educational program with the community. I just was, I guess, under the understanding that this was a village activity, like if you were going to be doing something at the park with the pond or something like that, that you would need waivers with people. I didn't realize this would affect our group
Mhm.
or other volunteer groups.
Mhm. And we didn't start this policy looking to regulate your group or groups like yours. We started thinking about it. What are these joint or village sponsored activities?
This isn't a village sponsored
Yeah.
activity,
And
so
so-
it shouldn't be related to me.
Well, it's village property, so we have liability. So if somebody's out there doing something
Even
on the
though I need
sidewalk,
property owner's permission to work on their side.
they don't own the sidewalk though. So, okay, but so I think we heard the concern.
Mhm. Could, Mitzi, could you, Amy, myself have a follow-up conversation so that we all get on the same page?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Let's plan on that. Thank you.
Anything else? Wow. All right. So volunteer policy, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So our final piece of legislation, Resolution 2023-17. Judy, we can do that by title only as well.
Finally, something easy. This is establishing sustainable events practices for events supported by the Village of Yellow Springs.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right. So I'll start by saying I provided a memo. Hopefully everybody looked at that to give background, particularly because when Gavin asked where did this come from, I wanted to make it clear that this has been an ongoing conversation. I think it's also important to remove this discussion from the broader, ban of single-use plastics. This is focused on more sustainable events. I think, for anyone that watched the town hall or, even if you didn't, we came away from that understanding that a village-wide ban of single-use plastics is a longer conversation and I think something that we'll have to think about and be open to. But just to keep in mind that this resolution is focused on events where essentially taxpayer dollars. I had wanted it to be in the packet, but we have it on the table where the village contributes a lot in kind, even if we don't put cash into the mix. And then thinking about particularly our village value around sustainability. So that's what's on the table. I don't necessarily have anything else I need to say at this point, but first of all, any comments from council? And then I know we have comments from citizens. Mary Ann.
So I'm reading the sentence, no plastic or styrofoam containers, blah, 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 blah. So what is acceptable?
Paper.
And what about utensils?
Charles.
Utensils.
Bamboo. If there are various options.
Yeah, there's bamboo, there's the utensils that are made from avocado pits.
And what about so-called compostable plastic, or is that included in here? I'm not familiar with the term.
So I think compostable is where arguably people are gonna maybe try to work around. I think we know that compostable materials actually don't get composted, but I think the reference, I guess in particular to how alcohol is served is about reusing those compostables that we know won't be recycled or won't be composted, or using something else. So, but I guess the goal is to, I think maybe like with the volunteer thing and with some of these other things is to start moving towards more sustainable events. Carmen? Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay. I'm sure we've got plenty of comments from citizens. So who wants to go
Got
first?
Jessica Thomas with a hand up online.
Okay. Yeah, Jessica, go ahead. And then we'll get to.
Jessica Thomas.
Can we unmute?
Oh, we're not hearing you.
Mute her. This way.
Oh, I'm sorry. What does that say? You cannot move.
No, how do I unmute her?
Oh.
I can hear her on my end.
Oh, this thing.
All right. Well, how about while we figure that out? Do you have other comments? Mark?
I'll start.
Oh, this is a tough one. First, let me say how disappointed it was that the only village council member that came to these chambers that were filled so much with business owners that even we had folks sitting up at the business owners sitting at the dais because there weren't any more seats in here. At any rate, disappointed that the only village council member that came was Brian. Thank you for joining us online. Who you were apparently monitoring the meeting via Zoom. We saw the little block, but didn't address any of the concerns of the key stakeholder group that the key stakeholder group had. Where's the collaboration the village is so proud of? I've got a lot of questions. The first one that I asked that night that I haven't had answered is why was Yellow Springs chosen the higher hanging fruit of single-use cups rather than the lower hanging fruit of single-use plastic shopping bags? I provided you each with a copy of best practices for a non-single-use plastic ban to be put in place. It is obvious from that document, as well as the fact that the only municipality that I'm aware of in the United States that has banned plastic cups on the wholesale is Honolulu. Styrofoam cups immediately, absolutely understand why. But there are certainly no, I'm positive there are no communities in Ohio that have banned single-use plastic cups. But right now, as I said, the only community that I can find after an extensive search in the United States is Honolulu. You'll find in that document that it also lists a number of countries, and none of them are banning single-use plastic cups. What I really want to know, and this was a second question that I asked that hasn't been answered, is why does this not bubble up through the Environmental Commission? Why were there no stakeholder meetings to flesh out the details and challenges of this type of legislation or resolution can present? How many meetings were held with the Environmental Commission and businesses to try and come up with a workable plan? How much good, other than the appearance of greenwashing, is this really going to do without a plan to move forward? Why is there no ramp-up period? Bexley spent 3 years apportioning funds to help businesses make the transition. Athens, which is also a very progressive community in the state of Ohio, is enacting their single-use plastics ban in January and giving businesses until August to comply. Right now, from my reading of the resolution that's before you, is that this would go into effect immediately upon approval. If that happens, we have a number of events, not only Street Fair, but also Yellow Springs Pride, which will have to go back to its vendors and say, oh yeah, sorry, our FAQs were wrong. You also have to do this, this, and this. That's a difficult space for anyone to be in. That's a difficult space for anyone to be in. Lastly, my evidence of my assertion that this is really a well-meaning resolution, but it's pretty obvious at this point to me that it's either incomplete or ill-conceived. Is that there are so many communities in Ohio so far that as I've already said, have banned single-use plastics, but avoided drink containers that we're specifically targeting. There must be a reason for that. I mean, there's a fiduciary responsibility to the business taxpayers. Isn't there a fiduciary to taxpayers? Isn't there a fiduciary responsibility to the business taxpayers to do the necessary research to make this something that actually will make a difference and will actually move us forward? Why is Yellow Springs making it harder than anywhere else in Ohio? Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Or do we have Jessica figured out?
I hope so.
Can you hear me?
I think she's unmuted. Jessica.
No, she's not.
Oh,
I'm unmuted.
I don't know how to unmute her.
she's already unmuted. I think it's I don't know what it is. I don't know what's constantly.
Right.
Oh, click that. Unclick that mute. Click that. Click that. Turn that up. That's your computer.
Okay, we'll keep on trying. Who would like to speak next? Dino?
Sure. Hi, Dino Pallotta, Cappuccinos. Questions for you on the budget. You have a line item a line item that is about marketing for downtown that comes out of the hotel funds, Airbnb funds. that tax that comes out there. I'd like to know how much is in that account, in that fund right now, just out of curiosity. And why don't we use that money, since that money was supposed to be directed for downtown businesses or whatnot for marketing? Why would we not use that for sourcing out paper cups? Why would we not use that for the events? Because that's what that money is sit there. I know you've used it other places and you've moved it around and you found ways to use it outside of the downtown area. Why not use that why not for this particular event, for events, use that money towards this for outsourcing for paper cups or things of that nature?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and by the way, we generate about 50,000 a year from the lodging tax.
A lot of cups, yeah.
Okay. Alex, did you want to say? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Miller. I'm the event director at the Mills Park Hotel, and I'm also contracted by the chamber to run street fair. I did last October, and we kind of got pulled into it last minute. So forgive any hiccups that we went through. So just a couple of things, just from, I don't live here, and so I have kind of an outsider's view on this. I am in this purely for the success of street fair. That is my job. That's what I'm getting paid for, hopefully. So we had a last minute meeting. We talked about this. This got introduced kind of out of the blue for me. I know that it had been discussed. I know it had been done at previous street fairs. COVID threw a wrench into that. I did call the Department of Health. We got mixed signals and we weren't actually set up to do reusable cups per the sanitation system. So we were not set up for that. That was a last minute thing as well. Again, street fair, it's incredible that it happened at all last October with our time constraints. So because of that, we heard all of this about a month or two ago. We are currently 3 months out from street fair, and we had a meeting last week to say, like, here's what the council wants. Here's what we can do and try to compromise with our time constraints. The cups, we have been sourcing out cups. Like, that is something that we want to do. We cleared it with the health department. We made sure we had all our facts straight. That is something we can accommodate. So that was a hard yes for us. Even if it's going to be more expensive, that was a hard yes. Plastic bags was also really not an issue, but something that we can accommodate as well. We had a couple of solutions for that. All of them are viable, and all of them relating to the vendors as well. The only thing that was going to be really difficult was the food trucks and regulating what they use. We did notice, again, we didn't collect any data last street fair, but plastic really wasn't a huge issue. A lot of the food vendors were already using like the paper boats and paper bags, and a lot of the vendors save their plastic bags all year from Walmart or whatever to use at street fair, which is reusing. And so we didn't really see a lot of the garbage from that on the streets, but we also weren't collecting data. And so our ask was yes on cups, yes on plastic bags. We can definitely accommodate those things to the best of our ability. Give us June street fair to pull the food trucks and figure out what we can do there. It's last minute. We are 3 months out from street fair and we already have people registered. At this point, it is not a reality for us to enforce anything, or we are going to lose a lot of our vendors and street fair might not happen. That is the reality. That's where we're at right now. And again, we've already had people sign up. It is unjust of us to go back then and say, oh, now that you've paid $550 to come to street fair, you also can't use any of the supplies that you've been keeping all year to come to this event. So that's just a couple of things. We do have a lot of options that we talked with Josue in depth about: purchasing carbon offsets, selling reusable totes. All of these are things that we are looking into because we really do want to make this happen and make it a very environmentally friendly event, because that's what Yellow Springs is about. And the street fair is to promote the Yellow Springs experience. So yeah, that is it.
All right. Thanks, Jocelyn. And I want to also say it was great to hear because Josue shared with me the productive meeting you guys had last week. And yeah, I really appreciate you, kind of updating us on that. So, all right. So do we have a good?
Really quickly.
Yeah.
If we don't have, do we have Jessica yet?
I don't know.
Okay, this is quick. So
yeah,
click on her.
You said yes on cups and yes on bags.
Computer.
What I need to know is I would like some details about what that means. If this is a hard yes, I need to know what that means. And what does yes on cups, yes on bags mean?
So we were working with YSB to source out reusable cups, and then also like compostable cups. We had a couple of different options available. Right now, it's just a matter of if YSB can do the reusable cups and they can get the sanitation system set up, then that's going to be a good option. And we just have to figure out which one is going to be most price effective for us. But we have quite a few options. We just had to look into them. And
Okay,
again-
so all right, and this is for businesses specifically, is that right? Or was that or is
for the
that
beer
specifically
garden.
for the beer for the beer garden?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, because that's the one that is completely in our control.
Right.
Whether that's not outside vendors, it's YSB,
Gotcha.
and of course they
Okay,
want to.
thanks for that clarification.
Marianne?
Yeah, well, I agree with what Mark said. I read somewhere that you said that you asked the Environmental Commission to look into this. I guess, I don't know if that was an email to me, verbal to me, it never got to EC. So whatever responsibility I have in that, I don't know, but it didn't happen.
But it got
So-
to your CASP goals, so you did hear it.
Yes, but that's much different than opening the packet and seeing this. So I agree that this is coming too soon. I think we want to do all this stuff, and I'm sensing that our business owners want to do that. I didn't come to the event, but one of my best friends did, and who is an environmentalist and against plastic, and she said she doesn't support this.
But that was
and-
not about events. That was about
Well,
the
anyway,
broadband.
I feel we could spend a lot of time here, and I really think this is coming too soon. And I really would like to have ways to engage the business community and the Environmental Commission. It was never been talked about at the Environmental Commission. So I just want to say that because I will probably vote against this as it is.
Okay.
I
Yes.
got Jessica typed in her question. We're having some issues. Jessica, this is not sufficient. We'll keep trying. Her question is from the Yellow Springs News. How will this affect small community building events like block parties?
Well, as it is, our contribution, as council has approved in the past, up to $25 or $35, I don't remember the exact amount right now, but it's for paper products. We haven't made explicit restrictions or indication anything other than for it being for paper products. But I can see us requiring the expenditure to be for either paper products or compostable products. I think that's something that we could regulate. I don't know if that gets to the question. Any event that we sponsor, such as the Touch a Truck or there's several other events that we're involved, we'll probably look to do paper products, which we move away. Actually, I spoke with Judy just last week about buying some steel cups for the building for us to eliminate the paper cups and styrofoam cups and any of those other plastics that we see around the building.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there should be a larger conversation. The village government like you're saying, Josue, doing away with those single-use plastic water bottle things that pop up all the time. But I think there needs to be a plan and it needs to be phased out, and we need to have people's input into it. So that it feels like it's being done by the community, not just foisted on people.
Okay. Alex?
Alex Price, Mills Park Hotel, also working with the chamber for helping with street fair. I'd actually gone through this and written several things down that I wanted to discuss, but I think everybody pretty much summed it up, especially Ms. McQueen. Why are we pushing this through? Why are we not taking our due diligence and going through the appropriate motions to get everybody involved? This is really just ramming it down our throats to try and make something happen without, again, doing the diligence behind it. Earlier in this meeting, you stated, Mr. Hausch, the goal is to get it right. And again, you stated in another point to make a plan. This is not making a plan. This is not getting it right. Why didn't it go through the Environmental Commission? If you read through this memo, there are no facts in here. It is all conjecture. You need to have hard facts if you want to make a plan, if you want to put something in place. Opinions are great, but the facts are what make things happen. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Alex. Gavin, did you want to say something?
Sure. I'll just say, I know a couple of people commented on council members not being at the here or the meeting, the town hall. I'll just speak for myself. This came as somewhat of a surprise, and then the meeting was scheduled quickly. I think many of us just weren't available on our calendar. I know that's people felt like they needed to come. I totally understand, but just so folks know, anyway, it was not out. I'll speak for myself. It wasn't out of a lack of caring or a lack of interest. It was just,
And certainly not out of any desire to disappoint.
yeah. So anyway, just so I'll speak for myself. I didn't know anything more than when it was scheduled, and by the time it was scheduled, it was too late. I think I agree with most of what Marianne said, which is agreeing with most of what Mark said in terms of, and I don't know, and others. Just seems like there's, and man, the accommodating nature of your comments. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot we could figure out here, and let's just take some time and work on it. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and let me also just to underscore, town halls are actually not about council participating. And after the last 2 town halls, and I talked to Josue about this, I'm not sure that we'll use that structure for utility or plastic kind of issues in the future. Work sessions, for example, are where council, can come and participate. So I was on a drive from Milwaukee, so I was able to listen in. But yeah, I mean, there was no expectation that council was going to be there. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a motion to remove this resolution. Because honestly, partly I just wanted to elevate this issue. I think my memo was clear that I tried offline, wasn't hearing any positive response. I'm hearing that now. And so, I'm, being straightforward about that. I do hope that the Environmental Commission gets to work on this, because I did talk about it back in October. And I think it's important for our community, and I'm hearing that from everyone else. So that's my motion. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay.
Remove the resolution.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And thanks, everyone. I appreciate the discussion and also the responsiveness. What's that?
Oh, me.
Huh?
We're good.
Okay, cool. All right, so we are moving into,
Real quick. So I feel like the folks that are doing the street fair, they asked about, so I think the sentiment would be, I don't know, I think the sentiment is if you can make accommodations that are in keeping with what I think you said, like the sort of street fair experience, Yellow Springs experience, great, thank you. But we're not saying there's you have to do this. And then hopefully we can begin a conversation over time. I just feel like we should give them direction that we're not saying you have to do it.
well, it was already agreed to in the meeting with Josue, so.
Okay, well, whatever it is,
so I
been
hope
agreed.
that-
I just,
Yeah.
from our perspective.
Take the high road.
Yeah.
Good.
I would say, there's a victory here. There's a win-win here. I think one of the things that I learned from the town hall and from speaking with the businesses is that many of them are already doing the things that we are asking them to do. The plastic the paper cups for coffee, the compostable lids, a lot of that work is already being done. For the large events that are coming up, the team, in speaking about sustainable practice, they didn't come at it from anything but a positive view. They said, great, how can we make it work? And we got to working on tangible strategies that will address all those issues. We even looked at carbon offsets. Carbon offset was a discussion. That's tools how other communities have been doing this work. So I'd say that there's a win here for all of us here. We are going to address the sustainability issue with tangible actions and the team is talking about it. And I look forward to having that conversation with the chamber and the street fair organizers. And I am hopeful for the council support and recognition that of the strides that the group is making towards a more sustainable event here in the village.
Well said, well stated.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. And you guys don't have to stay if you don't want to. Okay. But do remember we have to keep the door open, so don't be too loud out there. All right. So now is the time for citizen concerns. So this is when if there are any issues that are not on the agenda, we welcome comments up to 3 minutes. Mitzi?
Hi, Mitzi Miller. Clearing and repairing sidewalks to aid mobility is an ongoing need in our community. The most common form of active transportation is walking and cycling, but especially in communities like Yellow Springs that have large proportions of older residents that use walkers, scooters, wheelchairs, strollers, canes, and those individuals who are visually impaired. It's important the width of our sidewalks are cleared of overhanging plants, branches, shrubs, and trees. Another issue is debris like sticks and leaves and nuts and dirt and clumps of grass that can be a fall hazard to all our pedestrians and bicyclists. In the last years, we've made amazing progress clearing and repairing unsafe areas of sidewalk. Special thanks goes first to our property owners and villagers, the village itself and the zoning department for their efforts, the Active Transportation Committee, the Yellow Springs Citizens Action Project, and its volunteers for their strong effort and commitment to encourage safe pedestrian travel in Yellow Springs. It will be important to continue having a yearly reminder and educational effort to maintain clear, safe sidewalks in Yellow Springs. I'm asking the village to place another flyer in the paper again, an article reminding property owners to check their sidewalks and make sure they are all cleared for safe pedestrian travel. And we did that. We did have a flyer and it was really effective. So thank you.
Right. Thanks, Mitzi. Any other citizen concerns? Dino?
Yeah, just a quick question, Dino Pilata. Regarding YSDC, what does it mean to you guys and to each you guys? And what is it, is there an importance to it as a tool for you guys, a vehicle for you guys to be using? Just want to get your thoughts on that. Okay. YSDC.
We will put Yellow Springs Development Corporation. We'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Okay. Any other citizen concerns? Yes, Patti.
I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but the other night I saw somebody bike by with no light at all in the dark. And I'm oftentimes grumbling about that. So I don't know if there's anything to be done to encourage people, especially young people, to be lit properly at nighttime.
Yes.
That's all.
Thanks for bringing that up. We actually have bike lights.
We do.
And we will, in the past, we've had our peace officers carry those with them. And when they see somebody that doesn't have a light, and so we'll make sure that that's happening.
Yes, and we have two events coming up where we distribute these lights. One is the Trails Day.
Celebrate Trails Day.
Celebrate Trails Day. And we also have an activity with Mills Lawn School. And we have Gary and a few
Like
other
the school day.
like the school day. So we have two activities coming up where we distribute lights and do safety checks on the bicycle, make sure brakes and everything's working and properly fitted. So thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, yeah, we'll make sure our officers have those in the cars and whenever they see someone. So, and if you want to carry a few, Judy's a good person to connect with
those kids and give them a light.
Yeah. All right. Any other citizen concerns?
We'll get a waiver from you if you do that.
Okay, so then we're going to move into special reports. And actually, I don't think this is going to be a long one. We wanted to follow up on that annual report, which Mary Ann had showed us a lovely one from an island that she visits in Maine quite often. And I think the idea here was, and it was in your packet, an outline of what is being planned. So I think there are two pieces. One is anything that's missing from that outline that folks want to see in the annual report. And secondly, how many are we going to print? So, Carmen, we have a plan to do one of those. What are they called? The digital where you flip the pages?
It's a flip book. Yeah.
Okay,
it's
flip
called a
book.
flip book.
All right. So we're going to do that. And we know that probably most people access it digitally, maybe. But yeah, question is, we could go anywhere from like printing enough to put them in the paper to like printing a smaller amount and having
So that
them
people
like
can
for-
pick them up at the village office.
Exactly.
When they're coming to
Right.
take care of other business.
Right.
Yes.
So that's the sense that I think Josue and the team want to get.
Yes. And there's also a 2-page spread in the newspaper. If you recall, when we published
Right.
the comp plan, you open it up and you can hang it on your wall or just read through the whole thing. So 2-page.
Okay.
Do you have a cost associated with it though? Because I don't know the council that approved.
Yes, the cost just for the 2-page spread in the paper is 1,680. And the printing, the other variable cost is how many do we print? We need about $500 for the flip book and the other membership and the layout cost. So that's going to put us at 2,100. The rest is a variable cost for the magazine that needs to be printed. So how many would you be interested in printing? Printing 3,000 of them can cost up to a total of $5,000.
Oh, thank you. And I bet we could have like some nice graphics and artwork, local artwork. And yeah, I think this will be really helpful, really good.
That's nothing to, I mean, $5,000, or we can be sustainable, have it available online, and then have a few that we print, you know, because I mean, that is really what is sustainable, is having something that's online and in a flip book form.
Yep.
And then the spread in the newspaper, okay. But I don't think that we should be printing hundreds of copies of anything if it's available online. So
yep,
something we can think about.
Okay.
And that's the kind of feedback I'm looking for, so
Right.
that I have direction of, am I printing a couple hundred or a couple thousand?
Yep. So Mary Ann, what do you think?
I'd like the idea of having it available at the village building and printing whatever is a reasonable amount to start with. And if it goes and people want it, printing more. I agree. I like paper. You know, I like to take it home. I like to read it, put it in the bathroom, read it. And for people who don't live here, it's something that they can take.
And we could really push direct people to where it is online.
Yeah, we could have some at the train station, for example. Yeah. Gavin, any thoughts?
I don't feel strongly about it.
Okay.
I mean, I like the idea, but
Cool.
y'all
Kevin?
decide.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what's been said. Focus on the online flip book and find what's reasonable in terms of printing.
Cool. So the only thing is a few things that I thought we should add. It's just, and it's kind of mentioned, but like our goals and kind of the highlights of some of the major achievements related to those, just making sure that's contemplated. I have a note about community outreach. So I think what I was thinking there is some of our like events like Touch a Truck and things, just to kind of, and I think that's where Mary Ann kind of mentioned graphics.
We have that under public engagement.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Philip is taking that on. So that would include like the mammograms, all those events that we have.
And then I want to make sure someplace we highlight the grants that we've
absolutely
gotten and that piece. But otherwise, I think I like the outline. Looks good.
All right, thank you. And if any other council member have any ideas, send them our way.
Cool. Okay. All right. So I think we're on the manager's report.
All right, so top of the top story, if you will, or what's urgent. As you know, we're we're making good progress on our stormwater reroute project. We're in Walnut Street now. We're going to be there through the rest of the week. We'll provide weekly updates on where we are in the process. So we started last week, provided updates. Philip posted some today, and we'll do one at the beginning of the week, end of the week, so that folks have an idea of where in that project we are along the street. So please have patience with us. It's a big project. It's a project that has been tossed around for 60 years, and we're finally getting to it, and it's very involved. But we hope that the residents in the surrounding area will see the effects by not having water pooling in front of their homes or in the back of their homes as a result of this project. So that work is continuing. We started the audit process, so you all should have received a questionnaire online. I apologize that it was, maybe if it caught you by surprise. Our auditors have moved to a digital process now, so they're emailing this out. We were not aware that they were just emailing those out to you, but they have access to you. That's what the auditors do. They have.
Okay, so do that thing.
Yes, so
Okay.
complete that, the one questionnaire that you've got.
I figured it was one of Josue's fishing tricks, so I confirmed.
So no, it's not a fishing expedition. So our audit process has started. We're significantly ahead of schedule from last year, where we went straight into the fourth quarter with the audit. So we're in good position now. In fact, we got an award for last year's audit, so we got 4 stars out of 5 stars in our audit review. So Amy, she's left already, but she thinks she can get us to 5-star. We can get ourselves to 5-star. I've included other things in the. Sorry, I have one more pressing item. As you know, we had Shazam was a candidate for our therapy dog, and we had gone through an extensive week of observations and trainings. And I am sad to report that after significant observations, the team monitors some behavior patterns that could not be trained out, or they're just concerned about moving forward with Shazam. He's still a great dog, but unfortunately we had to return Shazam. So we're back to looking for candidates to fulfill the role of our therapy dog. So we all took we love Shazam. He was easy to get along with, but there are some things that we just couldn't afford to look beyond.
So question, is the village just looking at SIXA or other options?
We've expanded our option. We have engaged Joseph last, Denise's partner who has worked with
Dula.
Yeah. So Joe is helping us out. So we're engaging Joe to expand our search with therapy dogs. We wanted to look at rescuing a dog, but we're expanding our options, and we will consider buying a dog if we go down that route. So did you have suggestions, Carmen?
Yeah, Ohio Department of Corrections has a program where they get dogs in shelters and rehabilitate those dogs and socialize those dogs.
Okay.
And then it's part of the responsibility of the inmates that are with the dogs to ensure that they're properly socialized, and then they go back through another process with whatever facility you get the dog from to ensure that the dog is so all this stuff that we saw with Shazam, I didn't see the stuff with Shazam, but that Shazam, it would already be a done deal. It would already be, they don't make any dogs available that have any questionable behaviors.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. Paige is texting me repeatedly. She's working with that group now that trains the inmates, train the animals, and they go to specific shelters. So she's already working on it. That's part of the expanding the search for our therapy dog. But thank you for sharing that. Great. Any questions on my report?
Yeah. So there are some cool pictures in your report, and I would like to know where they are. what they are,
What they are? Okay.
like
well,
the 4 pictures that are showing the under. Do you know,
I should, let me pull up the report.
the first set of pictures?
Can you share screen?
Judy, are you able to pull up the report on your screen?
It's all a mystery down in there.
Now we gotta
Not
get-
simply, I mean, can we get to that later? Can we-
Well, I can tag the photos and send them back out to you.
Oh, okay.
But,
Right.
if we can't. pull
Yeah, I
them
got a
up.
mess on
So the first two are, these are storm sewer systems that we've, connected to the primary, storm system behind, the Dane Street businesses. One of the things that we've expanded the scope of our storm reroute project is that we're allowing the businesses to connect into the storm system. So we've have gutters, and created additional storm, drains and basins going into our sanitary or storm system. So those are the first 4 pictures.
Mm.
And the 5th picture is another basin that we've constructed along the way from Walnut, from the laundromat onto Walnut and down.
Yeah, so my concern was just that the people that are here don't
Can't.
have a point of reference.
Right.
So,
Yeah. We'll tag the photos, in footnotes or captions. I don't think the metadata in the photo gets transferred along. I'm sure Kevin could figure out a GPS and the.
It's possible, but I'm not doing it.
All right, any other questions? Okay, then we're gonna move into old business, and first off, we've got a Lawson Place update.
Yeah, so we've had, I included a memo on Lawson Place Apartments. This is following up on 2 conversations, one with Finance Committee and another separate conversation with Mary Ann and Carmen about what are the conditions, particular financial conditions of Lawson Place. In a nutshell, then this is referenced in the memo, the property on an operating basis is cash flow positive. There are critical improvements that we need to make to the property. We replaced the roof, we renovated 5 units. We've got additional work that we need to do with the property. We can make those investments or those capital improvements through our own capital funds, fund reserves that we have, or we can finance them through the revenue, the excess revenue from operations. So there's enough positive cash flow from operations that we could borrow additional money to make those capital improvements. There's strong support from the Finance Committee and the individual council members I've spoken with that if we can carry the operations of the Lawson Place and continue to make those capital improvements, then we should try to continue that for as long as possible, because overall, the project is sustainable. Overall, the equity that we're acquiring over time on the property, it's in money well spent. We're not losing money on this project. And more importantly, we're providing 16 units of below market rate rentals. Our units are 24% below market rate. And that's a very valuable resource in our community. It also provides for a multi-generational, multi-income community right there in Lawson Place. Brian and I worked on a proposal to Senator Sharon Brown's office for the congressional designated funding opportunity, and we've asked money to do the capital improvements on this property, and we positioned it as being an important property from a historical perspective, because the apartment building was constructed in 1965. This was before the Fair Housing Act went into effect. So it's got a historical significance, and we're hoping to secure some grant money for this project. But overall, as it's currently operating, it's cash flow positive on an operation basis. Once you factor in the capital expenditures, we dip into reserves, but it's money that gets captured on the back end on a 16-year period. if we look at the performa included for performa in the proposal, once looking out 16 years, the loan is fully paid, and that's a $640,000 loan. So we would have 100% equity in that building, will be completely paid for, and it's a very valuable asset. It was appraised at we bought it for below market value based on the appraisal. So we got a good investment. Any questions that council members may have on this?
Okay, thanks for doing the work.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, the Home Inc. request for funding. So I guess I want to preface this by saying, because this could end up being a lengthy discussion, that this is a reason that we need that housing committee in place, because my preference for this discussion would have been, like with finance committee stuff, that it was vetted, in a committee. A lot of the questions would be answered, and then we wouldn't be here past 9:30. So, but I know I have several questions, and I don't know where we want to begin. I guess we've all read the request, and I don't know. I think Mary Ann and Kevin, you were champions for this in sort of funding our affordable housing fund, contemplating this ask was coming. So Mary Ann, do you want to say anything?
Sure. Well, every single housing unit that Home Inc. produces is in line with our village values and supplies housing for people who otherwise would not be able to afford that, whether it's rental or home ownership. And it also provides permanently affordable housing so that if for whatever reason a person moves out of a rental unit or out of a home, another family, another individual, another household can move in. So that's one piece. Another piece is that this request for 40,000, which is minuscule in terms of the project, enables this organization to help secure a whole bunch more funding. So it's not just $40,000, it's an entrance into being able to go to whatever housing funding provider Home Inc. is going to and saying, look, our village government supports this project and they put this money in there. So to me, it is a no-brainer. And as I said, I don't know if I said it in council, but I don't want to get into a food fight about this. We have a community foundation that has a fair amount of money and they want to give that money away. And I strongly support the village government for whatever projects we start moving forward on, to use that as one resource and not get into a fight about where this 40,000 should go. Also, I really would like to get to the point, whether it's through a housing committee or whatever, so that Home Inc. doesn't, every time they have a project, they don't have to come to us. That there should be some criteria that says, if the village government signs off on this project, then these are the things that we will provide. Because this is part of, having affordable housing is one of the key issues and has been for decades in this community. So I think that sums up what I.
If you don't mind, Kevin, if you just let me just follow up, Marion, that was very well said. I couldn't have said it more eloquently on my best day, and this not being my best day. But I would submit, just from a visual perspective, I submit. I will speak for myself that I think I made a mistake in only asking that $40,000 be put in that fund. I didn't make up 40,000. We suspected that there would be a request for 40,000, and I support that request. The mistake we made was to only ask that 40,000 be in the line item. So it looks like, oh, we're giving our whole housing fund away. Well, I'll take responsibility for that, but that's not what's happening. We are funding to Mary Ann's point. This is like seed money. It happens every time we support Home Inc. They magically turn it into something so much more. I am tempted, but I will not speak to some of the letters that have been written against the funding. So since I said I wouldn't say anything, I won't. But the fact of the matter is, I support it, and I just want to put aside the concerns that anyone might have that we would be looking to give away our entire fund to one entity. Well, gosh darn it, it's there because of one entity. Again, the mistake that I'll take responsibility for is we should have asked for more money so that the 40,000 that I support giving to Home Inc. would have just been a portion of what we budgeted for. Thank you.
Kevin?
I just had a quick follow-up. I understood everything. I lost you at the community foundation part. What is, I'm sorry if I missed it. What's the?
Well, I'm assuming, I'm hopeful that the village is going to be moving forward with the housing project. And this 40,000, if we direct this 40,000 toward Home Inc., that means that pretty much takes up the fund. Right? I mean, I think there's 48,000 in the fund. I'm suggesting that the village develop a proposal to the community foundation for helping to fund needed affordable housing that the village government itself starts working on. That's where the community foundation comes in.
Okay. So just that we should try to get money there if there's money there, but it's not like.
Well, there is money there. I mean.
But I'm not, that there's not like money already. It's just.
There's not already money in the community foundation designated for a project done by the village government. No, we will have to go to the community foundation to ask that. But I mean, I've sat with Gina Marie, who said, at the beginning there, we have all this money we need to do. I mean, I shouldn't be speaking for Gina Marie, but community foundation gives money for affordable housing. So I don't want to get into a thing. Well, we have a project. Of course, we don't know what we don't have the project. There's nothing done with the project, but I don't want to get into a fight over this 40,000. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Anything else, Kevin?
I'll wait a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carmen, did you have any comments?
No, not yet. I think we're gonna maybe get into this.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe I'll ask some of my questions. So, so the first thing I think is important for us to understand is the value of part of the request is waiving tap and zoning fees. So Josue, if you could.
The tap fees, and I put this together and I gave it to you as we came into the meeting. So I apologize for you're just having it now, but on page 1, I've included the tap fees for the 8 units. And this has got a couple of assumptions built in. One is that particularly for the water and sewer, that these will be 5/8 by 3/4 inch connections. And so the totals for that would be $49,232 in tap fees. Another note on this is that the electric tap fee is for $250, and that does not include the meter and any building permit fee cost with that. That's on the tap fees, and I've got another item included there. You want me to address that?
Sure.
So we in anticipation of, we were in the process of relining the sanitary sewer systems around there. And in an effort to be proactive, and knowing that Home Inc. is strongly committed to developing the site, and I have full faith that they will eventually develop the site, whether it was going to be 54 units then or 32 units then. I will bet my money that Home Inc. will build something there. So the Public Works and Director Johnny Burns and myself included that project relining that sewer because it was the prudent and cost-effective thing to do in 2022. Home Inc. had also expressed strong commitment to repaying that relining of those sewers. It was financially prudent to do that project in 2022 because if you recall, we had a contract and fixed rates that were expiring in 2022. Had we not done that project under that contract, it would cost in today's dollar, if we were to do this now, it will cost $6,587.91 more. So that would take in an expense of $21,959.70 to $28,547.61. So in short, there is this matter of the sanitary sewer being relined at the expense of $21,959.70, and that's a matter that is that it's outstanding and needs to be settled and resolved. Brian, did I answer your questions?
I think so. And then is this 30,000 for engineering? Is that another?
Oh, so the other request was what contributions have we made to this project? And there was the $30,000 that were project engineering. I believe Emily Seibel's letter referenced that contribution. And we have kept at the request of citizens, we have kept a running list of the contributions that we've made with Home Inc. And so I added these 3 additional items onto what was already an ongoing tracking list in the village manager's office.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess a couple comments I have, and, so I think it's important that we recognize that investment from the village. And I think that kind of relates to before the Glen Cottages project, I don't remember the village including cash in our contribution. So I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think Glen Cottages was the first time waiving tap fees, donating land, a variety of other things has certainly been a part of that. However, I had a great conversation with Emily, and she highlighted that cash really does help sort of push getting that grant funding. So that is persuasive to me. But I guess I'm going to suggest not a 40,000 donation to this project based on a lot of the other investments that the village is making. So that's kind of where I'm at, just in terms of how I think about the project. I mean, I think a lesser amount, in addition to all of these donations, shows that the village has skin in the game. And I also think that there is not just one use of the Affordable Housing Fund, given the other, well, at least 2 projects that we've identified. So anyway.
Brian, I'm sorry to add one more thing. Johnny, I would be remiss if I don't point out what Johnny is sharing with me now. And that is that, again, with the assumptions that we made with the tap fees, those are tap fees if we are servicing 8 units. The engineering that Emily and Home Inc. has yet to do is the engineering for their entire development, which they may choose to have a much larger water line and sewer line to feed all those homes, and that would have a different price point for the tap fees. So an example of a 2-inch feed, that's $13,000 for a 2-inch water line. If they go with higher fees, then that number increases. But this makes the assumption that is individual 5/8 by 3/4 inch lines. I don't know, Emily, if you got any engineering that you can share with us. But Johnny doesn't have that engineering information, so we can make better estimates on the tap fees. This would be what those individual tap fees would be. And obviously, there's also aid to construction and other costs that are not included in this report.
Okay. Gavin, Carmen, anything before we have Emily?
Yeah, I have just a question about 2. It says, Home Inc. previously committed to paying for relining of the sanitary sewer system serving the development's location if a project moved forward. Previously committed how? That's my question.
It, I believe, was part of a council meeting and a planning commission meeting, and Emily's here, so if she wants to weigh in.
Yeah, sure, anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
I just need to know how.
Emily coming up?
Yes, hi, I'm Emily Seibel, Executive Director of Yellow Springs Home Inc. So just looking back, the references that we found to the commitment to reline the sewer should the 54 unit project move forward was tied to a request that was granted for 54 tap fee waivers. And this may or may not be the time to weigh in on the other questions, or do you want me to wait?
Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, so in terms of the aid to construction fees, those are different from tap fees, and we are committed to paying those. Johnny, we had an initial meeting with Johnny and Denise and our architectural firm. We haven't done civil engineering yet. That comes a little bit later, closer to the final approvals. But Johnny estimated $60,000 for just aid to construction fees. That's above and beyond tap fees. That's above and beyond any contribution that the village would give to the project. And that's consistent with how we did Glen Cottages. So there was a layer of local funding that went into Glen Cottages. That was $60,000. We also then paid the village for the aid to construction expenses. And that's like for new meters, new actual out-of-pocket expenses the village is incurring. And part of that 60,000 too is to commit the $21,979.70 to reimburse the village for the 2019 funds that were expended on the sewer relining. So we are prepared to do that.
So Emily, while you're thinking about things, I believe we also talked about that. I mean, what I see in the request and what was mentioned in another letter just focuses on senior housing. But I think you talked about kind of a broader vision for this project, or.
Yeah, so we have done a lot of public input, which you'll hear about in a different context. But one of the things that we heard is that people really wanted to see an intergenerational component to this. So we have committed to putting a row of townhomes along Marshall Street, which is the residential corridor that feels more like family housing. And those are being designed flexibly so that the first floor is fully wheelchair accessible. They will be, someone could live comfortably on the first floor, but they'll also have a second floor, and we wouldn't restrict those to seniors. The apartments, we think that makes a lot of sense to have that be senior focused. And there are certain services and partnerships and coordination that will happen from the 22. So then in the 10, yeah, so 22 will be just for seniors, and then 10 will be more flexible. So I mean, it could be families with children. That's based on public input.
So I have a question. I don't know if this is even a valid question, but just to help me understand, if the 21,959.7 was tied to a project that involved 54 units. If we're doing a project that's 32, 2/3 of that, does the obligation decrease by that same percentage?
Well, the sanitary sewer that's on the street and serving the property, the size is fixed. Its size is fixed. So could we? Is it something for, it wouldn't be the administration's authority to waive any of that amount. That would be council's discretion and authority to do that. We couldn't do it. So if council wanted to cover that expense, that's council's prerogative. It's not my office to weigh that.
Does that sound reasonable to consider? And maybe not tonight, because I think getting a deer in the headlights.
Right. No, I mean, so yes, and also it might not be in village manager's purview specifically, but the question is like, what would the difference be? Is that right? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's a big project, this much.
Sure.
Smaller project. course.
So can we get a number? I mean, like, is that
We could do that.
around, I mean, it doesn't have to be an exact number.
$13,013.16.
Yeah, the arithmetic is not the
Yeah.
issue. The work,
Right.
the work needed to be done.
Sure.
Now, whether it was 54 units or 100 units going in there.
I
the
just
sewer line
wanted a
needed to be
number. I'm good. I
relied. Yeah.
got the rest of it.
Yeah.
If I could say something, yeah, we had that question too. And Denise told us that she'd spoken with Johnny and assured us that the relining would have been needed, whether it was a 32 unit project
Gotcha.
or a
Okay.
54 unit project.
Okay, cool.
And the cost is the same at that time.
Right, the cost is the same.
That makes sense.
Any other questions for Emily? All right, thanks,
Okay.
Emily.
Thank you for your
Um,
consideration.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so other thoughts? Yeah,
Yeah, oh, it's just interesting how, one thing is like always connected to lots of other things. So, what kinds of housing do we need and how many? And so I guess I just want to, echo what Brian said, that I'm looking forward to the housing committee work. I feel like we have some decision making to do, about, what our goals are, specifically, prioritizing things. I hope it's okay to say I called Emily and, we talked about this a little bit, trying to understand things better. And, one of the things that I was reminded of, because the way that the number 40,000 came up, Kevin, you brought up a little bit, but it was sort of at the very end of this budget process. And, I'm reminded that Home Inc. did bring their request forward. So, at the beginning of the budget process, I would like for us to get into a position where we don't take one-off requests. So I'll just say, like, that's something that, and I think we talked about it last year. I feel like we were working without a finance director. We were trying to sort of work through a different kind of budget process last year. And so on some level, I feel like, Home Inc. did come ask about this before. As much as I would like for us to have sort of a structure, a system in place, we didn't have that system in place. And so I don't feel like we should sort of, hold them accountable for that or something. I'm saying it out loud here because I would really like for us to work toward, not just on this, but on events. You brought it up in your memo related to Environmental Commission. I think we can do a better job of having a systematic approach for how we move money. And so that it doesn't feel like it's sort of a one-off situation that we're making these decisions within. And then I think we have some broader conversations about how do we want to grow and where do we want to invest and what's the best use of our dollars. And it's hard because we'd like to have all of that solved right now and we don't. I think we're working on it. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it's as fast as it should be. So anyway, this is, I think I'm generally in a place where, with the caveats that I really don't want to do one-time things in the future. I really don't want to do last-minute budget requests during the budget process. And a recognition that we have some larger questions around how we're making investments going forward. I'm generally inclined to be supportive of this piece. I would really prefer not to, like, in the meeting right now, start adding on, what about this thing? What about that thing? I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good practice. I don't know what the budgetary consequences are. It goes back to what we talked about before around having things written. If that's a change that's once we made, I guess we could talk about it. I would prefer not to do it in this exact moment, just because I haven't thought about it that much, and it would feel like I don't know. I would prefer us not to make expenditures that way. So those are my 2 cents.
So kind of related to that, my understanding from an email is that you wanted this kind of shored up by second quarter. So I guess one option is we do think about it more and make a decision. I see Carmen nodding, or if somebody wants to make the decision now.
I move that we request a table.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know how
well, I'll second
stuff
that
works
and then
now.
we can have discussion. Sure.
Okay, so I'll just say, if it's by the end of second quarter, the conversations that I'm talking about, I don't think are going to get resolved by the end of second quarter. So I want to continue to have these conversations, but personally, I'd be more inclined to act now because I don't know how much, I don't think we're going to have our goals, our strategies, our systems for, costs, et cetera, figured out if the goal is by the end of Q2. And look, if I didn't say it, the idea of there being essentially a relatively small investment by the village that is bringing a bunch more dollars of development is, I think that's meaningful. So I would not want to miss out on that opportunity if Q2 is the deadline.
I'd like to have a housing committee meeting first, and we can get that in and come back with something. I'm not talking about our long-term goals. Talking about a little time on this specifically and the opportunity for housing committee, affordable housing committee, or the housing committee that's newly formed to meet.
That makes sense to me.
If I could also add, it might be something that could come up for finance committee. It makes me a tad anxious to have the finance director not in the room when, you decide what you're doing with a fairly substantial chunk of money and, what that may or may not do to the general fund. I mean, we just don't have that piece of input. So finance committee meets this week. So.
Okay, Emily.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah, no, just to clarify, I think another update since you got your packet is that based on the Ohio Housing Finance Agency schedule that they just released, there are a couple of changes in this year's funding. One is that they may not be willing to fund more than 50% of the total development cost this year. They have in other years, which is not your problem, but it does make things, it just poses another set of challenges. We are lobbying against that. And maybe if any council members would like to help me submit input, I think that would actually make a difference. And then the other thing is that we're not going to start construction this year. I don't think there's any way. I think it'll be the first half of next year. So in terms of budgeting for the tap fees, and that would be for 2024.
Right. Thanks. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I don't support delaying this. I support voting on it now. I don't think anything is going to come from delaying it. I do agree that I think there needs to be a process, that it doesn't have to always be coming to council. But I think that Home Inc. has done their due diligence. And as Gavin said, I mean, this is a relatively small amount for a big deal. And I hate for a group that is doing this work, and the only group in town that is, to have to be strong.
I agree. I mean, I just can't say it enough. I mean, there's no secret about, what the dollar amount was. And as I said earlier, it would look better if we put more money in. But that's not where we are. I made the mistake of just asking what I knew was going to be requested, but that was the intention of having the money aside to invest in a partner. That's the way I see Home Inc. and I think it's appropriate to treat them that way.
Okay. Carmen, were you gonna add something?
No, I mean, I'm thinking about, just not, everyone's talking about long-term and woulda, coulda, shoulda, and what we should have done and what we might do differently. I'm talking about this particularly right now, waiting until next meeting to vote on it.
Right.
So I can sit and digest it a little bit more.
And I don't think, I don't think we're stringing anyone out. To me, like, process is important. And so yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask how many people, I mean, can we?
Well, we're going to vote
Yeah,
on the
we'll
motion.
vote.
So once the discussion,
Yeah, let's make sure we.
Yeah.
I wanna know-
What's the discussion?
Yeah, well, repeat the motion, because I think.
well, the motion was just to
Just a
table.
table.
Yeah,
Okay.
and bring it back. Okay, so Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll.
All right, McQueen,
The motion is the
It's the
table.
table,
that's what-
yes.
No,
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Stokes,
No.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And good motivation to get that housing committee going. All right.
Leave
thanks.
one meeting.
Erica will be sending out the invitation for Thursday at 2 p.m. That
Okay,
seems
cool.
to be
All
what
right,
works
good.
out. Yeah.
Great. All right. And Emily, thank you. I mean, I didn't hear anything that said we're not in support of the project. So, okay, Mary Ann, climate action sustainability plan goals.
Oh, yeah. Well, given, one, the delays that happened with getting, the climate action program sort of situated. I think I'll wait a minute as everyone leaves. Thank you for coming. So given, first of all, the delays of getting a conceptual climate action and sustainability program together, going through a hiring process and hiring a coordinator who had essentially just started doing 2 weeks of part-time work when the agraria situation happened. That sort of blew everything out of the water, basically. So I have been talking, I've talked with you, Brian, Josue, Rebecca, and Florentina, and also Alex Klug. And what I plan on doing is coming back to council with a proposal to bring this project back into the village government, to be housed in a way with the environmental commission, and to have some specific projects that we would be tasking the coordinator to do. In fact, I think we'll put that one that we were just talking about today on that list, to meet with staff and to bring it to village council for approval, not just of moving it back, but also what those tasks would be. And it's going to take some time before the money gets available as well. So my sense is that it would take a couple months to sort of develop a plan, run it by staff, see if it's going to maybe draft to come to council to see if it'll fly. Well, that's where I'm, and hopefully in a couple months, enough money would be available that we could bring Florentina back. So.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that update. Any questions for Mary Ann? Okay. I'm going to recommend that we move the discussion about the rec policy to the next meeting. Is that okay?
That's fine with me.
Okay with everyone?
Luke won't be here, and who has domain expertise, rec arbitraging, they do some of that. So we might not have Luke at the next discussion, which I think if there are any special requests, let me know, or any requests for information, let me know so I can coordinate with Luke and anyone else.
Yes, I do. Because one thing I didn't see in this, which I may have missed, was buying back. And as I recall, when John Paul from
oh my God,
Climate Future Clean Ohio, whatever, he talked about identifying appropriate places to buy back recs. In other words, like things that could be more local, having some criteria. So I didn't see that. There were a couple things I didn't see that I would want to see.
That was not explicit in the proposal, but yes, I'm a believer of the arbitraging opportunity and the green E-Rex and finding ways to do that. And we can make that more explicit in the policy proposal.
Okay.
Can I just ask real quick? I thought this was like a thing that was going to go through environmental commission to make the recommendations. So I just to say, like, if there isn't conversation going on between environmental commission and just that everybody talks so that we don't end up with a whole thing. So just if there is, if it's already going on, great. Yay, bring it back. We'll talk about it. But if not, can y'all just talk so we can all be on the same page?
Okay. Carmen?
Did you move to table this particular piece?
Oh, we don't need to. It's not legislation. So,
I thought you said you wanted to talk about this particular piece later. Is that?
yeah, but we can just take it off then.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right.
I think it was good that you made a formal motion on the request because, that was
I
sort of
just
a decision
I just
thing.
thought that I heard you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then, board and commission reports, Gavin, it sounded like you had something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in about, so we have these two committees that we set up, one around looking at some of the police like policy stuff, and then one of the setting up for the housing committee. So I'm just trying to get us in a habit of holding ourselves accountable to, are we actually doing these things? So the one that I know about is the housing committee, which is that we're setting up, I think, Josue sent an email on Friday. We've started to schedule something. And I'm saying this out loud in part because I hope that citizens and council members will all hold each other accountable to actually get on a schedule and move this stuff along. So that's where I know the housing committee conversation is. I didn't know if there was any update on the police component. Yeah.
Yes. So Kevin and I are doing the first phase of the police. We're also in charge of the village manager evaluation. That has been the priority right now. Kevin and I will be talking next week and probably will be asking to meet with the chief to start the police.
Great.
That's all.
Okay. Anything else about boards and commissions?
Oh, yeah.
Or environmental.
Oh, environmental commission.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was, I don't know, this is not the first time where something gets sent from my computer and my computer says it's sent, but Judy doesn't get it. So anyway, you have in front of you a document with the Environmental Commission budget request for 2023. We made essentially the same budget request in the fall and nothing was done about it. It wasn't clear. And I have to say that, the Environmental Commission is a group of people that take what they're doing as volunteers seriously. And there's a feeling of being disrespected, I think, and not valued. And part of it is having to go, well, this is really the third time we've come to council because there's no clear policy of how we make budget requests. And while I'm on my soapbox, we also want to start creating a way so that environmental things that come up are gone through the Environmental Commission. Like the recs, actually, I would say EC is not in a position, particularly, I don't think the expertise in EC is so good about the recs, but we would be in a position to talk about the plastic and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so here we are with this budget request, and we've itemized pretty detailed the request for the Earth Day celebration because we have those numbers and that's coming up. We also have the number for the Native Habitat website, which is firm. And I wanted to read something that I have down here, if I can find it. Darn. The Native Habitat website was something that I can't find the words. I got words from Bethany and Catherine, and they're lost in my computer. Was set up about 3 years ago, and Alex Klug was paying for it from her own finances. And then last year we requested it be paid for by the village, but it never was. And so this year, and then it went down because she wasn't paying for it either. So it's really a way that people in the village can go and find out how to do native habitat things. And it well, there's nothing been done, but it has a lot of information on it, but it's just sitting there because it's not up. So that's what the native habitat is, that $400. The $6,000 is money that we are requesting as a set aside for the kind of activities that are listed below. Now, as I said, this is a volunteer group, and we haven't developed all of the, we don't even know if we will do all of those things. But the idea is that having that money set aside so that when those projects do rise up, that there would be money there to do them. So that's the whole request for $7,772, with the priority at this point being the Earth Day celebration of $1,372.
Okay.
Is there I'm sure there is the amount for village or council budget.
Yeah, we set aside, what was it, 40,000?
25.
25, okay. And I will say, well, you might not remember, last year, we did establish a process, which was we have to vote to approve commission budgets. Part of that came from our prior village solicitor. Part of that came out of the state audit thing. So we did do that last year. Now, I mean, there was a shuffle because we hadn't done that before, but then we did formalize that we have to vote on it. So sorry if the environmental commission feels like it is a shuffle.
Well, I mean, I brought it, we brought it up to council twice, so I didn't know what else was taken.
Just that we have to vote on it. So, yeah.
Oh, you mean in the fall when we initially brought it, I should have said, I want you to vote on it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
That's what was
I mean, I'm not sure. What's that?
Let's do it now.
Yeah, we're going to do it now. But I mean, but that was something that we got dinged on. So we have to formally do that. So do you want to make a motion?
Yes.
Before you make the motion, can I ask for one clarification? The auditors don't like the miscellaneous item. So if we can book that as material or supplies or
Okay.
or some more specific category than.
Materials and supplies.
Yeah, so like materials and supplies.
Yeah,
could
that's
be-
what you meant.
Yeah, like if you're buying pencils or an easel then that's a supply, like we could.
Okay.
All right, so.
All right.
I have a quick question about that really quickly so we can knock it out. So the Native Habitat website annual fee is $400. That's a lot of money for a website. It seems like it just is.
It's actually
server.
somewhat less, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so for a server and the the site itself, I think that we could direct people to resources that are already there, like the ODNR website, Ohio State University Extension. We can direct people to.
No, I don't think that serves the purpose of this website.
What's the, how so? Just real quick.
I can't answer that right this real quick moment.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's just something to consider. I mean, and it's not like it's a negligible amount. $400 is kind of because these resources are available, and EC could charge itself with informing people on how to find the resources instead of paying $400 for a website that somebody was paying for out of their own pocket anyway. But I mean, that's everything else that I don't take an issue with anything else. I don't have any more questions about any other part of it. Just that $1 piece.
I need one more clarification just so that we book the expense appropriately. On the volunteer activities, items 1 through 3, I see those as being materials and supplies. So fencing and water sources, plants and materials, and habitat plants and material. Those are all materials and supplies. The last one, community education projects, will those be professional services? Are we paying people?
As I said, none of these things have been planned out. So there is no plan.
So this is just a suggestion, could we go back and specify item by item exactly what it is we're going to need? Because it is pretty loose. and then come back and then we'll vote on it next time after we have the opportunity to work out some specific details about what each of these items are?
I actually don't think that you need to go to that, get that far down in the weeds.
Okay.
I think that if you've hit your categories reasonably successfully, as long as it's not miscellaneous,
Okay.
I think you're all right. And if later you say, you know, that educational projects piece that we said would be supplies, we actually have a specific speaker. Okay, the money's set aside. As long as it's vetted properly ahead of time, it's already in your budget, so it can shift a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I think you're gonna make this work.
All right.
we just need those categories so that we could put it
Okay.
in the right place.
So I did find out what I wrote about the website. In terms of how much it costs to host a website, I don't know that. But here is what the website provides. The website serves as an education and outreach tool to inform residents and organizations about the property habitat certification process, as well as the community certification on their own. They can do this on their own time. It also serves as a storehouse of information to help residents and organizations be stewards of their property. That includes topics such as native plants, invasive plants, wildlife, questions and answers, and how to connect with area organizations to participate in community land stewardship activities and other events. It's a tool for the village to model and promote the vision and goal of creating wildlife habitat and sustainability practices such as water conservation, pesticide reduction, elimination, planting native plants, and invasive plant removal. This website could be linked to the village site. The expense is relatively tiny compared to the benefits. So I think that.
So this information, I'll just say it again, all this information that this website is providing, that it's not providing now because it's down, is pretty readily available to anybody who knows how to use the internet. ODNR has this information. The Ohio State University Extension has this information. The natural habitat, there's a national website that outlines how people can do all of these things. So.
Okay, so I think we've had a healthy discussion about this budget. Gavin, are you sure you need to say something else? Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to understand so we have $25,000. Do we have, because we had talked about doing we're all going to try to cut our budgets by half, Are in terms of commission, in terms of council costs, I guess I'm just in the same way that I feel like with Home Inc., I'm inclined to say, hey, they've been trying. I'm inclined to give them the money, but there's not like a whole long list of things that then we're all going to be frustrated about, or several other people are going to be frustrated about when those things come in.
And I guess, Carmen, I'm frustrated that given what you're saying now, you didn't bring it up in EC meetings because we've talked about this a number of times. So, I know a lot of work has been put into this website.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm saying I'm just asking right now specifically about the website, whether or not I mentioned it when we had a meeting or not. Maybe I didn't think about it. So I'm mentioning it now because I'm thinking about it now.
Okay, so what I would hope is that all commissions are judicious with whatever we set aside with that spirit of not spending more than is necessary.
Right.
So Marianne, are you making a motion
Yes, I'm making a motion
to approve?
approve this budget of $7,772
I
for the
second.
Environmental Commission for 2023.
Okay,
No.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, anything else about boards and commissions? Okay, thank you. Future agenda items.
Oh, I do have some more. Sorry.
Okay,
We went far away from where we were supposed to get. Just really like sentences. So, Planning Commission, at its last regular meeting, voted in favor of a text amendment to allow by conditional use only other types of housing in addition to single-family units in RA. RA previously was designated only for single-family homes. So by conditional use.
Okay.
And then the second one is from PACC. So our Public Arts and Cultural Commission meeting we had on 3/16. The discussion included a banner to be created by local artist Deborah Dixon to replace the Black Lives Matter banner. Deborah is brilliant. For all those of you who know her work, and her unique style will be a welcome sight at the south end of town. I've been reaching out to high school in hopes that students can create banners for future use, and it provides them the opportunity for community service. I've been in touch with one of the art teachers there, and also the Maya Looney Baloo. And we're also working on the busking guideline card, something that's efficient and states what we want to be made available to the community with clear parameters outlining the kind of performer busker etiquette.
Okay.
So we'll have something forthcoming.
Great. Okay. Future agenda items.
The Rex.
Okay. Yep. We're going to move that forward. Anything else?
We have some report about the police.
Okay.
Progress.
Sounds good. Housing committee will have met. Finance committee will have met. Okay. So then, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move.
Okay. All in favor, wave your hand.
Just leave.
Wow.
Okay. All right.
No, it's Mary Ann and Kevin.
What?
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
They're trying to get the.
All right.